The scent of polished mahogany and expensive cologne hits me as I push open the heavy glass doors of Morgan Industries headquarters 30 minutes early. The quarterly board meeting isn't scheduled until 9, but something in Dad's voice during our brief phone call yesterday left me uneasy. Just a routine discussion about budget allocations, he'd said. The tightness in his tone suggested otherwise. The executive floor stretches before me in hushed elegance, cream-colored carpet so thick it swallows my footsteps, walnut paneling that gleams under recessed lighting. Family portraits line the corridor, generations of Morgans in formal poses, their stern expressions watching me pass. My simple charcoal pantsuit and low heels feel suddenly inadequate, a reminder of the gulf between my research-focused life and the corporate world my family inhabits. I slow my pace when I hear voices from the boardroom. The door stands slightly ajar, a sliver of light spilling into the hallway. "Just sign here, William. TechCore is ready to wire the funds as soon as we close." A voice I don't recognize, clipped and professional. $3.5 million is robbery considering what we've put into that division, my father replies, his deep voice unmistakable. "It's more than fair for unproven technology." My sister Victoria's voice now, dripping with the smooth confidence that opens doors and closes deals. My heart hammers against my ribs. They're discussing my division, my research. I push the door open fully, the hinges protesting with a soft whine. For heads snap up in unison, Dad in his tailored Italian suit, Victoria in her signature red blazer with gold buttons that probably cost more than my monthly rent. James hunched slightly in his chair, and a thin man in spectacles I don't recognize. Papers scatter across the polished table surface. One slides toward me, and I catch the words Quantum Stability Division Asset Transfer Agreement in bold type before Victoria snatches it away. "Elizabeth," Dad recovers first, his silver eyebrows drawing together. "The meeting isn't for another half hour. You're selling my life's work without even telling me?" The words tear from my throat, raw and disbelieving. Dad sighs, straightening his monogrammed cuffs. "Your little science project has drained enough company resources, Elizabeth. 6 years of funding with nothing concrete to show investors." "Nothing concrete?" I step forward, hands trembling. "We've achieved quantum stability at room temperature for 17 minutes. Do you have any idea what that means?" Victoria laughs, the sound like breaking glass. "Elizabeth's basement tinkering," she says to the stranger, who smiles thinly, always promising breakthroughs that never materialize. I look to James, hoping for support. But he studies his Italian leather shoes, shoulders curved inward as if trying to disappear. The memory of Grandma Morgan surfaces her weathered hands gripping mine 3 months before she died. "They don't understand vision, Lizzie," she'd whispered. "But I do. That's why I'm setting up this trust for your research. Don't let them stop you." 6 years of 18-hour days. My small team working weekends, holidays, pushing the boundaries of what everyone said was impossible. Dad dismissing quarterly reports without reading them. Victoria mocking my expensive hobby at family dinners. And now the selling everything for a fraction of its worth to the first buyer who showed interest. This division has cost us nearly $12 million. Dad says, his tone gentler now but still dismissive. "The board agrees it's time to cut our losses." "The board hasn't met yet." I counter, my voice steadier than I feel. "A formality. The voting shares are already aligned." He gestures to the papers. "TechCore is being generous considering the circumstances." The room spins slightly. 6 years of work. My team's futures. All the potential applications we've only begun to explore: medical imaging that could revolutionize cancer detection, encryption that would make financial systems impenetrable, energy transfer systems that could slash power consumption. I turn to leave. My legs wooden. Dignity the only thing I have left to preserve. At the doorway I pause. A sudden calm washing over me. Grandma's voice echoes in my mind. "Remember who owns those patents, Lizzie. Remember what I taught you about protecting yourself." I turn back, meeting Dad's impatient gaze. "You might want to check the ownership of those patents before you sign anything else." The words hang in the air between us. Dad's expression shifts subtly: confusion, then the first flicker of uncertainty. Victoria's perfectly manicured hand freezes midair, the pen she's holding suspended above the signature line. James finally looks up, his eyes widening as understanding dawns. I walk out, closing the door behind me with a soft click that somehow sounds like thunder in the sudden silence. The revolution has begun. The next day, after getting more documents to defend my research, the morning sun slants through the blinds as I pace my living room, my fingers repeatedly dialing Margaret's number. 6 years of research. My life's work. And they tried to sell it for pocket change without even telling me. I'm outside, Margaret says when she finally answers, bringing reinforcements. I open my apartment door to find Margaret Wheaton standing there in a charcoal suit that makes my simple attire look shabby by comparison. Her Harvard Law diploma hangs in an office downtown with a view of the harbor. Behind her stands Dr. Thomas Reynolds, my research partner, clutching an accordion file bulging with papers. You were right, Margaret says, brushing past me. Her heels click decisively against my hardwood floor. We found everything. Thomas sets up his laptop on my kitchen counter, while Margaret spreads documents across my coffee table with surgical precision. The papers form a constellation of betrayal, each one a star in a universe I never wanted to discover. Your father has systematically blocked every funding request you've submitted for the past 3 years. Margaret taps a thick folder with a manicured nail. And that's not all. Thomas turns his laptop toward me. Look familiar? On screen is a PowerPoint presentation with Victoria's name prominently displayed. The slide shows quantum stability algorithms identical to those we developed 6 months ago. She's been stealing our research. My voice sounds hollow in my ears. How? Remember Jason from it? Thomas says. Victoria convinced him she needed administrative access to our servers for a security audit. She's been downloading our data for nearly a year. I sink onto my sofa, the room tilting slightly. She presented this as her own work? Won innovation awards for it. Thomas's normally gentle voice hardens. The quarterly bonuses she received for breakthrough thinking total more than our entire lab budget. Margaret hands me a folder labeled Morgan Industries internal correspondence. Inside are printouts of emails between Victoria and my father, spanning years. Don't worry about Elizabeth's funding requests, reads one from Dad. The board never sees them. I make sure of it. Another from Victoria. Had dinner with the tech core executives. They're very interested in quantum stability applications. I told them my division is making significant progress. My father's response chills me. Good. Elizabeth's little project is bleeding money. When the time comes, we'll transition ownership to your division. Family legacy matters more than individual credit. My hands shake, anger rising like bile. I think of all the weekends my team worked, all the progress reports Dad never read, all the times Victoria mocked my hobby while secretly stealing from it. I look up at Margaret, who stands with arms crossed, waiting. We're going back there, I say, rising. Now. An hour later, we stride into Morgan Industries headquarters. The receptionist, recognizing me, buzzes us through without question. In the elevator, Margaret hands me a thick legal document. Your grandmother was smarter than all of them combined. She says the patents are ironclad, registered in your name, funded through her trust. Your father can't touch them. The boardroom falls silent when I push open the door. Dad sits at the head of the table, Victoria beside him, looking smug in a perfectly tailored burgundy suit. James occupies his usual place, shoulders hunched, eyes downcast. 3 board members I recognize as Dad's golf partners occupy chairs along one side. Elizabeth. Dad's voice carries a warning. This is a private meeting. About my research division, I say, stepping inside. Margaret and Thomas follow, closing the door firmly behind us. So I should be here. Victoria's smile tightens. We were just discussing asset realignment. Nothing that concerns Endpoint. You mean theft? Thomas interrupts, placing a flash drive on the table. Of intellectual property that doesn't belong to either of you? Margaret steps forward, her presence filling the room despite her small stature. I've prepared documentation showing systematic intellectual property theft, fraudulent representation of research, and misappropriation of corporate resources. She slides copies to each board member. Elizabeth's patents are independently owned through the Eleanor Morgan Trust. Any attempt to sell them to TechCore constitutes corporate fraud. The color drains from Victoria's face as she snatches a copy, scanning the pages rapidly. "You always were dramatic, Elizabeth," Dad says, though uncertainty creeps into his tone. "This is business, not personal." "Stealing my work is very personal," I reply, surprised by the steadiness in my voice, as it's blocking my funding while Victoria paraded my research as her own. Victoria slams her palm on the table. "Innovation doesn't count unless it has my name on it. You've always been content hiding in your lab while I built relationships, made things happen." "You mean taking credit for others' work?" Thomas projects emails onto the wall screen. Victoria's correspondence with Jason in IT, instructions for accessing our server, file transfers of our research data. One of the board members, an older woman with silver hair, examines the documents with a deepening frown. "William, if these allegations are true." "They're not," Dad interrupts. "Elizabeth has always had an overactive imagination, playing in her lab while the rest of us ran a business." He rises, towering over the table. His gaze locks on mine, cold fury radiating from his eyes. "You'll never work in this industry again. I made you. I can break you." The words hang between us, a declaration of war. 6 years ago, they would have crushed me. Today, they strengthen my resolve. "The patents are in my name," I say quietly. "Funded by grandmother's trust, she saw what you couldn't or wouldn't." The boardroom falls silent. Even Victoria stops flipping through papers, her face a mask of calculation. The silver-haired board member stands. "I believe we need an emergency meeting tomorrow morning. All board members present, full financial disclosure." She looks pointedly at Dad, no exceptions. Dad's face reddens as he realizes the situation isn't fully under his control. "This meeting is adjourned until tomorrow." I gather my things, acutely aware of every eye in the room following my movements. As I reach the door, Victoria's voice cuts through the silence. "Family loyalty used to mean something to you, Elizabeth." Her words drip with venom. "Grandmother would be ashamed." I pause, hand on the doorknob. "No, Victoria. Grandmother knew exactly who you were. That's why she left the trust to me." The door closes behind us with a soft click, but I hear it like thunder in my ears. In the hallway, Margaret squeezes my arm. "First round to you," she whispers, "but tomorrow's the real battle." I nod, the weight of what lies ahead settling on my shoulders. This isn't just about my research anymore. It's about truth, justice, and the revolution has only begun. The email notification from PR Newswire pings as I stare at my apartment ceiling. It's been 6 hours since the boardroom ambush. I force myself to look at my phone screen, already knowing what I'll find. Morgan Industries addresses leadership concerns in quantum division. The press release quotes my father extensively about his deep concern for Elizabeth's well-being and recent erratic behavior. Victoria appears in paragraph 3, expressing heartbreak over family matters becoming business issues. The subtext is clear. I'm unstable, unreliable, dangerous to the company's future. I hurl my phone across the room, where it bounces harmlessly off the worn sofa cushions. The apartment feels suddenly claustrophobic, bookshelves overflowing with quantum theory texts, coffee table buried under journal articles, kitchenette counters supporting graduated cylinders I'd brought home to run calculations after hours. My phone buzzes again. Unknown number. "Your keycard access has been terminated, Dr. Morgan." The security manager's voice is professionally neutral. "Your team has been placed on administrative leave pending review." My team? The words come out strangled. 7 brilliant minds, their livelihoods now hanging by threads because of me. "I'm sorry. Director's orders." He hangs up before I can respond. I sit motionless as golden afternoon light filters through blinds I haven't adjusted in days. A text from Dr. Reynolds flashes on my screen. "Don't panic. Trust me." 3 sharp knocks at my door startle me from spiraling thoughts. Through the peephole, I see 5 people huddled in my narrow hallway, arms laden with cardboard boxes. "Elizabeth, open up." Dr. Reynolds' familiar voice, urgent but steady. I unlock the door to find my entire research team, minus two standing there: Reynolds, Aditi, Marcus, Cooper, and Simone. Their faces show determination rather than the defeat I expected. You've got about 20 minutes before security realizes we removed these from the lab, Reynolds says, brushing past me with the impromptu storage facility. What is all this? I ask, stunned by their synchronized efficiency as they unpack equipment, external hard drives, and stacks of notebooks. Aditi, our algorithm specialist, grins. We saw this coming 6 months ago when your sister started asking those oddly specific questions about our encryption protocols. You knew? My voice cracks. We didn't know exactly what they planned. Reynolds explains, connecting a laptop to an external drive. But we've worked with your family long enough to recognize when the vultures start circling. Marcus, our quietest team member, speaks up. We've been backing up everything. Off-site. Triple redundancy. And working weekends at my place, adds Cooper, pushing his glasses up his nose. Which, no offense, has better coffee than the lab. Simone pulls a flash drive from her pocket and holds it up like a trophy. But this is the real prize. Breakthrough progress on the quantum stability algorithm. 3 weeks of work they don't know about. Simone pulls a flash drive from her pocket. A knock at the door silences the room. Reynolds motions everyone to freeze as I approach the peephole. James stands alone in the hallway, shoulders hunched, looking both ways like a character in a spy film. I open the door just enough to block his view of my living room. What do you want? 5 minutes. His voice lacks its usual corporate polish. Please. I step into the hallway, pulling the door closed behind me. Make it fast. James runs a hand through his thinning hair. I knew. He admits, unable to meet my eyes. About the sale. About Victoria stealing your research notes. About the campaign to discredit you that launched this morning. The hallway narrows as blood rushes to my head. And you did nothing. I was a coward. His admission hangs between us. But I'm done with that now. He pulls a folder from inside his jacket. Victoria's division hasn't produced original research in years. It's all acquisition and rebranding. These are the financial records proving it. I take the folder without opening it. Why no? James finally meets my gaze. Dad built an empire with brute force. But you could change the world. His eyes flick to my apartment door. Your team refused TechCore's offers this morning. Every single one of them. $500,000 each to jump ship. And they all said no. Something warm unfurls in my chest, pushing against the cold anger that's been my companion since the boardroom. Dad doesn't understand loyalty he can't buy, James says. That makes you dangerous to him. After James leaves, I return to find my team huddled around Reynolds' laptop, faces illuminated by scrolling code. Henderson and Farouk are still at the lab, Reynolds explains, playing along to feed us information. The PR campaign is just the beginning, I tell them, sinking into my lone armchair. They'll come after all of you next. Your careers, your reputations. They already have, Simone says, sliding her phone across the coffee table. On the screen, a series of texts from recruiters offering fresh starts, away from the Morgan situation. Cooper snorts. TechCore offered me a corner office and stock options. I told them I don't work for thieves. Aditi nods firmly. Your grandmother funded my doctoral research. Loyalty isn't just about paychecks. The mention of my grandmother sends me to the bookshelf where I keep her letters. Between quantum theory textbooks sits a worn leather portfolio. Inside, among birthday cards and graduation notes, I find the letter I vaguely remembered written 2 weeks before she died. My hands tremble as I read her spidery handwriting. The charter amendment is filed with Harrington. If William ever tries to appropriate your work, Article 16 automatically redistributes voting shares. He never reads the fine print, darling. That's always been his weakness. I work through the night, poring over company documents with new understanding, while my team catches sleep in shifts on my sofa and floor. Near dawn, I find it Article 16, Section 3, Paragraph 7. The clause that changes everything. Grandma knew this day might come. I whisper to her photograph on my desk as the first light of morning streaks through my blinds. My phone buzzes insistently. Then again. And again. The first message is from the patent office, my quantum stability algorithm officially granted. The second, National Science Foundation breakthrough designation confirmed. The third makes me sit up straight, a smile spreading across my exhausted face. Initial licensing interest starting at $4.2 billion. Bye. I look around at my sleeping team, at the boxes of research they rescued, at James's folder of evidence, at Grandma's letters. They have no idea what's coming. The next morning, the boardroom feels different today. 13 members of the Morgan Industries board sit in leather chairs around the massive walnut table, their expressions ranging from curious to concerned. The emergency meeting called for 9 o'clock sharp has everyone on edge. I stand in the corridor, watching through the glass wall as Dad checks his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. Margaret squeezes my arm. Ready? I smooth my tailored charcoal suit, not the simple pantsuit from last week, but something with just enough authority to make a statement. I've been ready for 6 years. We enter, flanked by my legal team carrying sleek portfolios. The room falls silent. Dad rises from his chair at the head of the table, face flushing. This is a closed board meeting. He announces, voice sharp, Elizabeth, you and your entourage need to leave immediately. Before I can respond, Dorothy Walker, the silver-haired board chair and my grandmother's oldest friend, taps her gavel. William, I called this emergency meeting at the request of several board members who have concerns about yesterday's attempted sale. She nods toward me. I believe we should hear what Dr. Morgan has to say. Dr. Morgan, the formal acknowledgement of my credentials sends Victoria's perfectly plucked eyebrows shooting upward. I take my position at the presentation screen while my team distributes leather-bound folders to each board member. The weight of 13 pairs of eyes bears down on me, but for once, I don't feel small. Thank you for. I begin. This is ridiculous, Victoria interrupts, standing abruptly. Her voice rises with each word. My sister is attempting to steal research funded by this company. She's been mentally unstable since our grandmother died, and now she's trying to sabotage a legitimate business deal. Dad nods, adding, I move to adjourn this meeting and handle this family matter privately. Second, calls out Vernon Pierce, Dad's golf partner and reliable yes man. I remain perfectly still, waiting. Dorothy glances at the folder before her, then shakes her head. Motion denied. Please continue, Dr. Morgan. Victoria slams her palm against the table. She has no right to. The patents for the quantum stability algorithm are registered in my name. I say, my voice steady, they were funded entirely by grandmother's independent trust, not Morgan Industries. The documentation is in your folders, Section 1. The rustle of turning pages fills the room. James, sitting halfway down the table, studies the papers intently, refusing to meet Dad's glares. Furthermore, I continue, clicking to the next slide. The National Science Foundation has officially designated our breakthrough as a technology of national significance. I pause, letting the prestigious seal on the screen register. Initial bidding for licensing starts at $4.2 billion, not the $3.5 million in the TechCore contract you attempted to execute yesterday. A collective intake of breath sweeps through the room. Vernon Pierce's mouth hangs open. Dorothy's eyes widen behind her glasses. That's preposterous, Dad sputters. No quantum technology is worth. The Department of Defense disagrees. Margaret interjects smoothly, directing the board to Section 3, as does MIT's Quantum Computing Center and 7 major tech corporations who have already submitted preliminary bids. Victoria's face drains of color, her knuckles white against the polished table. This is a bluff. She's always been jealous of my success. No bluff, I reply, clicking to the next slide. But speaking of success, the FBI has some interesting questions about your division's research claims over the past 3 years. The forensic accounting report is in Section 4. I walk slowly to the center of the room, where I can see each face clearly. But there's something else you should know. Section 5 contains a clause from Morgan Industries' founding charter, inserted by my grandfather and reinforced by my grandmother before her death. Board members flip frantically to the tab section. In the event of attempted intellectual property appropriation, voting shares automatically shift to the person whose IP was threatened. I let my gaze rest on Dad. As of yesterday, when you tried to force this sale, I became controlling shareholder of Morgan Industries. The room erupts. Questions fire from all directions, but notably, they're directed at me rather than Dad. For the first time in my life, I see genuine fear in my father's eyes. He pushes back his chair and stands. This meeting is over. My lawyers will. The meeting isn't adjourned yet, Dad, I say, the word Dad feeling foreign in this context. Please take your seat. These words, these simple words that freeze him mid-stride. The boardroom falls silent as the power shift becomes palpable. For perhaps the first time in decades, William Morgan hesitates, then slowly lowers himself back into his chair. Dorothy taps her gavel gently. I believe the board has several questions for our new majority shareholder. I nod, maintaining my composure despite the thundering of my heart. The revolution isn't just beginning. It's already won. The boardroom atmosphere is familiar today. My nameplate gleams at the head of the mahogany table where Dad sat for 30 years. 1 week into my chairmanship, and the leather still feels stiff beneath me, unyielding, as if rejecting my presence. Board members file in with cautious smiles. Their eyes dart between me and the empty seats where Victoria and Dad will soon sit. James slips in quietly, nodding as he takes his place, his usual hunched posture slightly more upright today. When Dad and Victoria enter, the temperature seems to drop 10 degrees. Victoria's red blazer burns like a warning signal. Dad wears his power suit charcoal gray with subtle pinstripes that cost more than most people's monthly mortgage payments. Elizabeth. Dad's voice carries none of the deference the others showed. He sits without waiting for my invitation, Victoria following his lead. This meeting will now come to order, I announce, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. Before I can continue, Dad slides a folder across the table. A proposal for family reconciliation. For the good of the company. Victoria leans forward. The press would love hearing about a daughter's hostile takeover. Think of the headlines: family betrayal at Morgan Industries. Stock prices won't hold if this gets ugly. Their lawyer, a jolly man named Richard Walters, produces a document with practice deficiency. A cease and desist regarding your use of Morgan family patents. The family name is trademarked, and your grandmother's trust doesn't supersede certain corporate bylaws. The old Elizabeth would have wilted under this assault. The woman who spent 6 years being dismissed as Dad's quirky daughter playing scientist in the basement. But that woman no longer exists. Before we address these concerns, I say, tapping my tablet screen, I'd like to introduce the board to Project Helios. The wall screen illuminates with images of a gleaming research facility I've kept hidden for 3 years. Funded by grandmother's trust and built in an old warehouse 30 miles from Morgan Industries. While you were busy undermining my work, I continue, swiping through slides showing cutting-edge laboratories. My team achieved quantum supremacy that maintains stability for 78 minutes. We've applied this technology to protein folding algorithms that have already identified 3 potential cancer treatments. Dad's face remains impassive, but a muscle twitches in his jaw. Additionally, our carbon capture technology has attracted significant attention. I pause, letting the tension build. The government has awarded us contracts totaling $7 billion. Victoria's pen clatters to the table. James straightens fully now, his eyes wide. Morgan Industries stock has risen 70% since news of my patents broke last week. I continue. Any questions? The silence stretches until Dorothy Walker, Grandma's old friend and longest-serving board member, speaks. I believe we'd all like to hear more about these developments, Elizabeth. I nod to Margaret, who distributes tablets to each board member. These contain the results of a forensic audit of the Innovation Division for the past 5 years. Victoria's face strains of color as she scrolls through the document. You'll note that Victoria's division hasn't produced original research since 2019. What they have produced is a systematic pattern of fraud, including falsified test results and plagiarized research. This is ridiculous, Victoria splutters, but her protest lacks conviction. Page 12 details Dad's negotiations with Meridian Global to sell controlling interest in Morgan Industries to foreign investors without board approval. Dad slams his hand on the table. You've overstepped, Elizabeth. The The final page, I continue as if he hadn't spoken, shows comparative financial growth across divisions. My research area is the only consistently profitable sector, despite having the smallest budget allocation. The silence that follows feels like the eye of a hurricane. "What happens now?" asks Harold Stevens, Dad's golfing buddy and longtime ally. I straighten my simple blazer. "William Morgan will transition to Chairman Emeritus, a ceremonial role with no operational authority." Dad stands, his face flushed. "You can't do this. You taught me business isn't personal, Dad. Consider this a lesson in your own philosophy." I nod to security waiting by the door. Victoria's employment is terminated, effective immediately. Criminal charges regarding the fraudulent research are pending. Victoria jumps to her feet, knocking her chair backward. "You think you can destroy me? I'll burn this company to the ground before I let you win." As security escorts her out, her threats echo down the hallway. "You're destroying the Morgan legacy. You'll regret this." I turn to James. "The CFO position remains yours, with a 6-month probationary period under oversight from an independent committee." Relief washes over his face. "Thank you, Elizabeth. I won't let you down. Dorothy Walker will serve as interim COO during our transition period." I continue. "All in favor of approving this restructuring plan?" One by one, hands rise. Even Harold Stevens, after a moment's hesitation, raises his. Dad remains standing, his hand firmly at his side, but it doesn't matter. The vote is unanimous without him. As the meeting adjourns, Margaret touches my arm. A reporter from the Financial Times is waiting for a statement. In the atrium, camera lights flash as I approach the podium. The journalist from the Times steps forward. "Dr. Morgan, what happens to Morgan Industries now?" The question hangs in the air as I consider the weight of legacy, the responsibility of power, and the future stretching before me. The company that bears my name but never valued my vision. The family that shares my blood but rarely my values. Dad watches from the boardroom doorway, his expression unreadable. For the first time in my life, I don't search his face for approval. The scent of fresh paint and lemon polish greets me as I guide a cluster of eager young scientists through the glass-walled corridors of what was once Morgan Industries' fortress-like headquarters. 6 months have transformed the space completely. Gone are the heavy mahogany doors and closed offices, replaced by transparent walls and collaborative spaces where researchers freely exchange ideas. "Our quantum stability lab is through here," I explain, smoothing the simple but elegant navy blazer I've paired with tailored black pants. No designer labels, just quiet confidence. Every workstation has direct access to our central computing hub. A young woman with bright eyes raises her hand. "Dr. Morgan, is it true your team achieved stability for over 80 minutes now?" I smile. 87 minutes and counting. "And please, call me Elizabeth." Later, I stand in the boardroom where my life changed forever. The polished table that once held the papers meant to steal my work now displays our newest patents, quantum-based cancer detection technology, with a 96% success rate. The board members listen attentively, so different from the dismissive faces of 6 months ago. "The early clinical trials have exceeded expectations." I explain, watching their expressions shift from interest to genuine awe. "Targeted quantum imaging allows us to detect cellular changes 3 years earlier than conventional methods." When the applause dies down, the boardroom door opens. My mother, Rebecca, stands hesitantly in the doorway, notably absent her usual strand of pearls and designer clothes. Her simple gray dress makes her look smaller, more human. "I didn't mean to interrupt," she says softly. "You're not interrupting," I assure her as the meeting concludes. When we're alone, I slide a folder across the table. "I'd like you to consider heading the Morgan Charitable Foundation." Her fingers tremble slightly as she opens it. "After everything that happened with your father and Victoria, grandmother would have wanted healing where possible," I say, "even if some bridges can't be rebuilt." The afternoon finds me celebrating with my original research team. Now directors of their own divisions, Dr. Reynolds raises a glass of champagne, his loyalty throughout our darkest days never forgotten, to Elizabeth, who saw what the rest of us could only imagine. James stands nearby, still proving himself as the reformed CFO, but making genuine progress. The shift in him since choosing integrity over our father's corruption remains a daily revelation. Before leaving, I detour to my office, where a young physicist, Allison, waits anxiously with calculations spread across my desk. Everyone says my approach is too theoretical. She confesses, shoulders hunched with familiar self-doubt. I recognize myself in her uncertainty. Never let anyone tell you your ideas are too ambitious. I tell her, thinking of all the times my own vision was dismissed, the quiet ones are usually building revolutions. That evening, I hang grandmother's portrait beside the framed first patent that changed everything. The small brass plate beneath reads, "Never underestimate the quiet ones. They're usually the ones building revolutions." At my desk, I review plans for our new research campus when a news alert flashes across my screen. Morgan Industries' value has tripled since the restructuring. I smile, close my laptop, and glance at the clock, 5:30 p.m. For the first time in years, I'm leaving on time. The revolution isn't just about quantum science, it's about changing how we value what truly matters.